On January 9, 2025, at 10:58 a.m., the Emergency Communications Center received a call regarding a person with a gun at a residence in the 1000 block of Lockbourne Road. The caller stated her boyfriend was at the residence with a firearm threatening to shoot her. Officers were dispatched at 10:59 a.m. Officers arrived at 11:03 a.m. and saw a male standing in the rear of the yard of the residence. Officers ordered the male to come to them, but he refused and pulled out a rifle from under his coat. At 11:04 a.m., the suspect fired multiple shots at two officers and he fled on foot. At 11:05 a.m., the suspect reappears in the alley to the west of Lockbourne Road and fires multiple shots at officers inside Cruiser 110, striking the cruiser multiple times. The officers inside Cruiser 110 returned fire. At 11:07 a.m., the officers locate the suspect in a backyard of a residence in the 1200 block of East Columbus Street and take him into custody. The officers noted that the male no longer had the rifle in his possession. At 11:18 a.m., the helicopter arrived overhead and began searching rooftops for the discarded rifle. At 11:22 a.m., the helicopter located the rifle on the roof of a structure of East Columbus Street, close to where the suspect was taken into custody. Columbus Fire was requested to respond with a ladder, and at 11:34 a.m., the firefighters confirmed the rifle on the roof. Officers became aware of the fact that the suspect had possession of an orange handgun as well. At 11:52 a.m., the orange handgun was located on the back porch of a residence in the 1000 block of Studer Avenue. No officers were injured. The suspect was transported to a local hospital after complaining of chest pains. The female caller was transported to a local hospital for treatment for injuries sustained when she escaped from a second-story window to get away from the suspect. It was later discovered a residence in the 1200 block of East Witter Street was struck by gunfire. At this time, we will show you a series of videos and photos from this incident. The first video is body camera video from one of the first responding officers.
The guy out back. I couldn't tell. Hey, my man. You, come here. You, come here. Come here. Come, Martin. Bill Black. He's wearing a black shirt. He's one arm crossed. He's got a rifle. Where'd he go? This one? What's the intersection?
It's right next door to, it's all off where it's right next door. It's just north of Roosevelt Park. First structure north of Roosevelt Park.
Let's get a photo of that. Let's keep an eye and pull wherever you got the blocks out.
I got you. 9 and channel,
Right there. He's on Studer, running north from Casa.
Get her phone call.
He's just right there.
Keep the air clear.
Check that car. The Durango. Get down. shot at us too. I'm calling for it. Get on the ground! Somebody's around the block. Whoever's coming out here, leave. He's in the backyard. I don't hear. He's back here with his hands up. Get on the ground. You fucking move, I'll kill you. You fucking move, I'll kill you.
The second video is cruiser video from the cruiser that was struck by gunfire.
That's a Lockport, northbound shots fired. He shot at a cruiser northbound, Lockport, from Columbus.
Here is the slowed down version of the cruiser video. I'd like you to pay attention to the lower right portion of the screen. There you will see snow flying to the air at the ground that was struck by one of the bullets the suspect fired. And here are photos of the 2 bullet holes inside of the cruiser. Now we will show you video from one of the officers inside the cruiser who discharged their firearm.
That's a Lockport, northbound shots fired. He shot at a cruiser northbound, Lockport, from Columbus.
Next are some still photos of the rifle that was recovered from the roof of a structure on East Columbus Street. And finally, here are photos of the handgun that was recovered in the rear of a residence of Studer Avenue. You can see it right up under the railing on the porch. The suspect has been identified as 17-year-old Tamari Stouter. We cannot share his photo because of his age, but we can share his extensive criminal history. He was arrested in 2024 for aggravated robbery, and kidnapping. In 2023 for carrying a concealed weapon, receiving stolen property, which was a firearm, and having weapons under disability, and being in possession of a stolen vehicle. In 2022, he was arrested for being in possession of a stolen vehicle. And finally, in 2019, at the age of 12, he was arrested for robbery. I condemn this behavior. If anyone thinks it's okay to shoot at an officer or to put the community at harm the way that this suspect did, we will come after you and we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. This was a domestic violence situation. We know that domestic violence is a very serious situation, and it's very dangerous. In 2024, we had 23 of our homicides that were domestic violence related. 2 out of the 3 homicides this year are domestic violence related. And DV runs are known to be one of the most dangerous runs for law enforcement. No doubt that the actions that our officers took yesterday saved the lives of someone. We're working with our juvenile judges, and we meet with them regularly and we're working with them closely, but we have a lot of work that still needs to be done. And that's evident by the fact that this individual was still on the street. He's a very violent and dangerous individual. and he showed no regard, not only to the officers, but to the people in the community. Our officers showed great restraint again during this situation, and he was placed into custody without incident. I stand before you on many occasions talking about officer accountability and being transparent about when officers do wrong and showing you videos and talking about the actions that we're taking. Our officers, they take an oath to protect and to serve. They put their lives on the line every day for the residents and for our community, but they do not take an oath to be under attack and assault themselves. We want to protect our community, but we also need to protect ourselves and our officers and make sure that they're okay as well. Just like they show up every day to ensure that people's families are able to welcome them home, we want to make sure that our officers make it home as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you all for joining us here today. I want to thank the Chief and everyone at the Division of Police, but particularly the officers involved in this incident for their bravery and service, for running toward the threat in order to keep our neighbors safe, particularly the woman who called the police for help in the first place. What happened yesterday is completely and totally unacceptable. No one, and I mean no one, no matter their age, their situation, their personal challenges, should threaten, harm, attack, or intimidate our officers in any way. This community stands firm. If you come after our officers, you're going to be coming through all of us. Our officers are responding to calls for service throughout our city right now, putting their lives on the line to keep us all safe. When you see instances like this, you're reminded of the challenges and the risk they face every day serving this community. It was just the other day, on Tuesday, when we came together as a community to talk about the safety trends and progress we saw in 2024. One of our key call-outs was the disturbing rise in domestic violence, a trend in the wrong direction we've seen nationally and locally since the pandemic. Simultaneously, we've also seen a troubling rise in young people involved in violent crime, both as victims and as suspects. And as you saw here today, domestic violence has the terrible potential to harm everyone, not only innocent partners, but also innocent bystanders and our first responders, whose job is to race to the scene as quickly as possible to render life-saving assistance. This incident happened at 11 in the morning on a Thursday. It originated between a 17-year-old suspect and an 18-year-old victim. There were innocent bystanders we saw located feet away from where these shots were fired. Thanks to these officers, and a miracle based on what we've seen, no one was hurt while the suspect recklessly fired his weapon without regard for those around him. Clearly, we have to do everything in our power to keep incidents like this from happening again. That's why we're committed to devoting even greater attention and resources to addressing this scourge and galvanizing the community to speak out and take action on domestic violence. Over the past year, the city, for our part, has invested an additional $1 million in LSS Choices to get more beds online for individuals and families seeking immediate shelter. In addition to shelters, Choices offers a 24-hour domestic violence crisis information and referral hotline. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, you can contact their team at 614-224-HOME or 614-224-4663. There's also the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. and the Ohio Domestic Violence Network at 614-781-9651. They've also created a statewide map of programs and shelters. You can find that more on their website. And as always, if you know you or someone you love is in danger, call 911. But this has to be a community-wide effort. We need everyone to do what they can to diffuse and prevent these situations from happening in the first place. Police can't intervene until there's been a call for service, and by then, it's potentially too late. The police cannot solve this crisis for us. We all have to do our part to step up to fight domestic violence. Our officers absolutely have a role to play, but they need us to step up. As we've just seen, they continue to step up for us, and we need to step up for them. In this community in Columbus, we stand with our officers. We stand with CPD, and we'll do all that we can to carry this work forward. Just over a year or so ago, there was an unprecedented increase in shots fired at our officers. Officers were being targeted and attacked. This community came together and stood with our officers and saw some great results in a safer environment for our officers after those events. But we can't assume that every incident like this won't have victims involved the next time. And so we as a community have to be very, very clear. Targeting, threatening, firing weapons, attacking police officers is completely and totally unacceptable in this community. And we all need to do our part to communicate and share that message and reinforce it in the way that we interact with law enforcement in this community and communities throughout this region.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief. I'm Brian Steele, President FOP. I echo the Chief's sentiments. I echo the Mayor's sentiments. It's an honor to stand here shoulder to shoulder to show our community that attacks on the police officers, the Chief, the Fraternal Order Police, the Mayor, we are going to stand aligned. This video is hard to watch. Any video where an officer is almost killed is hard to watch. This video shows us two things. It shows the dangers that the men and women of our police face daily, and it shows the failures of the juvenile justice system. You saw the rap sheet that this juvenile had. There was an evil in this juvenile's body long before that day. He was failed. Society failed him, schools failed him, parenting failed him, and I am so grateful that our officer's not killed. I am grateful that this 17-year-old was not killed. Now he could face justice that he deserves. I placed a phone call earlier on, and I should have the answer by the end of the day. I called over to the prosecutor's office. I have two questions for the prosecutor's office. Who is the judge who failed and allowed this juvenile back on the streets? And finally, when can I expect him to be bound over? Because that's what has to happen. With that, I'll stand for any question.
Brian, how do you feel given the extensive violent background of this juvenile that he was out to do these acts yesterday?
Again, number one, as a human being, I feel sorry for him. I feel sorry that you could start this life of crime at 12, violent crime, kidnapping, robbery, assault. I feel sorry that he was failed in some way. But as a police officer, I'm disgusted that he tried to kill our cops. Now, look what our officers did. Our officers are armed with pistols. This is an individual with a high-capacity AR-style rifle. He's using cover and concealment, and he's maneuvering under fire. You did not see officers retreat. You saw officers converge on him and respond to his aggression, and then when he surrendered, the officers peacefully took him into custody despite the fact that they were all almost killed. It's amazing. It's just a testament of how great the men and women of the Division of Police are and the greater Central Ohio community. Shahid.
Chief, are you able to say when the woman jumped from the window, was she running from the suspect?
Absolutely. She was, she escaped out of the window in an attempt to get away from the suspect.
Yesterday, we heard that he may have made prior threats against officers. Can anyone confirm that? And in the 5 months since that aggravated robbery occurred, first,
any shots fired in that aggravated robbery, any details of that particular incident? And has there been any contact with him in those 5 months until yesterday?
I cannot confirm what you just asked. We're looking into all that. Obviously, this whole situation is under investigation, so I can't confirm. You said a previous contact with officers or with the victim as far as domestic violence. We're looking to confirm that. We don't have any confirmation on that yet.
Okay. And you can't confirm if he's made any prior threats against police?
No. Do you have any information? We do not have that. I cannot confirm that at this time.
Chief, do you know if he made any statements after being taken into custody about shooting officers?
What I can confirm is that he definitely was distressed and he was making statements at that time. I cannot confirm at this moment exactly what he said, but he was making statements, and I'm sure all of that will come out in the investigation.
Are you able to say guns that were found in him were stolen, how you got them, and where they came from?
No. Do we know if those weapons were stolen? The handgun was stolen. Yes.
Do you know where it was stolen from, like the car or the residence?
Yeah, there were.
Specifics of that robbery, but it was stolen during a robbery.
Do you know how long ago? Just so that we have an idea how long it may have been on the streets.
DC, where?
It was this year. That robbery's still under investigation, so we do have to kind of keep some of that close until we have a chance to follow up with the victim.
Thank you.
Any idea what other charges he could be facing?
Well, we as you know, he's definitely going to face the charges that we talked about, but there was a location that was also struck, so he could possibly face charges for that as well, in addition to the attempted murder on the officers, as well as the domestic violence, which was the original call that we were there for.
Chief, you talked about meetings with judges. When did that start? How often is that happening? What's being discussed? And have you seen any changes?
We have. We started meeting with them informally when I first got here, and so there have been formal meetings that have been occurring between First Assistant Chief Potts, the judges, as well as Assistant Chief Bacher, and there have been some movement, and we've seen some changes in how they score. But again, we have a lot of work that we still know that needs to be done, but they're committed, as we are committed, to trying to get to a place where we know that we need to be.
What changes in how they score? What do you want to have as more of a priority?
Obviously, anything that involves a weapon, a firearm, any type of violent behavior towards individuals as it relates to domestic violence that could lead to serious injury or death, anything like that.
I mean, Brian Steele, Sergeant Steele, excuse me, you had said, I'm sorry about that, Lieutenant Steele. You had said that obviously he shouldn't have been on the street. Chief, he has a bind over hearing this month. We know that aggravated robbery happened in August. In those 5 months, do you think he should have been let out?
I don't. I absolutely think with his record and his history that he should have been detained.
Regarding that kidnapping, the August of 24th, did that involve the woman who called 911? Were you able to say?
I don't think that was related to, correct me, DC, but that was not, she was not the victim in that August case. She was not.
Mayor, I've got to ask you, as much as you have highlighted in the last few months, last year and a half, the concerns about DB being this early in the year and having such a young suspect who's adamant about hurting maybe his girlfriend and the officers.
Completely and totally unacceptable. But we cannot sit back and expect the police to deal with this crisis. Domestic violence needs to be solved by this community. We know that there's more we can be doing with prevention and intervention and education, but clearly this person that we're talking about has a history. And we need to continue to work with the courts and the judges. And to the chief's point, focus on folks that are using guns in crimes. Because if you're using guns in robberies and carjackings and those types of things, we know those are the same individuals using guns to commit more violent acts. And we need to really focus on juveniles that are using guns in crimes. But the work of the domestic violence is on all of us. If you talk to any officer, and the chief mentioned this, when I talked to him, one of the scariest and oftentimes most unpredictable run to go on is one involving domestic violence. So if you care about our officers and want to protect them and make sure they go home to their families, you have a role to play in this. The faith community, the business community, Block Watch community leaders. If you support our officers, then we need you to step up and help us deal with this crisis.
Chief, given the increase in DV homicides, is there anything your officers are going to be doing differently when they approach DV calls for their own safety?
I think that they do a very good job now, as you can even see in this particular situation, which obviously was not a situation that we wanted to be in at all. But our officers, they get a lot of training as it relates to how to respond to domestic violence situations. We also have our STOP program, so our officers are continuously being trained or being given new information, and we always tell them, treat everyone with caution. We don't want anyone to go out and assume that everything is going to be safe. Take care of yourself, protect the community. So we're not going to go into any situation thinking it's going to be okay. We're always going to be alert and cognizant of the things that are going on around us.
And for those community members who may ask the question of why wasn't like a right response or some social worker sent out on a DV call like this, can you kind of explain the need to have the officers respond immediately?
Absolutely. Anytime that there's a weapon involved and threats of someone threatening to harm or take someone's life, the officers have to respond to make sure that they make the scene safe. We can't send civilians or anyone into a situation where they may also be subjected to harm.
This call came in as person with a gun doing a check with at least one side of that duplex. There were multiple calls of person with a gun within the past 12 months. Is there a history? What's the history of this home? How often did he stay? Has the victim made complaints on him previously?
So my understanding, and again, this is something that we're looking into, there were some complaints regarding that residence, but they weren't necessarily involving him. So there's a history in that home. We don't have, again, we're looking into it, and it's still under complete investigation, but there were some calls, but they weren't necessarily regarding him.
Brian, if I can ask, what is your message to your members, to your officers who are out on the street tonight, who take a look at that video and just thank God no one was killed?
So again, the message is, I see you, I hear you, these are the dangers you face, yet you go out there every single day and you provide a call for service. And I'm going to talk about the judges. I'm not here to paint any broad brush on any judge. We have some fantastic judges in this county. I have personal friends that are judges in this county. The problem is the juvenile justice system is completely broken. It was started for kids stealing candy bars to rehabilitate a child, not for a kid trying to kill officers with an AR-15. That's where the conversation has to start. Where do we go wrong? How are we going to fix this entire process? Some of these judges are completely handcuffed in what they can and can't do. And for them, I tell them, I see them, I hear them. Again, FOP stands ready to be a part of the conversation. We're the voice of law enforcement. We want to be part of that conversation, and let's start fixing a failed system together.
We hear from juvenile court judges when we do pose that question, if we keep them in lockup, if we send them to jail, that's where they become criminals. What's your response to that?
Do not want to take a 12-year-old who stole a candy bar and lock him up. That we do not want to do that. We don't do that. Let's rehabilitate that kid. Let's reform that kid. If you're a 12-year-old and you do an armed drive-by shooting, a robbery, there's not a whole lot we could do for you. How did that happen? You have to face some kind of consequence. Putting an ankle monitor on you and a piece of paper and kicking you back out on the street saying, don't do this again, is not the answer. So again, the FOP is not to lock you up and throw away the key. Let's get you help if we can get you help. Let's have prevention programs. If you are a violent like this individual with an evil soul, which you could tell by his record, you have to go away. You cannot be on our streets.
Chief, if I can ask you a different topic, and my apologies, about the video CPD posted today about the people going around sucker punching people in the Short North.
What are you asking me?
Can you explain kind of what's going on and what CPD is doing about it? Because I think for any of us going out, Short North, popular time to go out on the weekend, just the fear of random attacks like this?
So, not to get too much into it, because I know we were here for this specific subject, but what I can tell you is that we are working diligently, and one of the reasons that we do post things like that is to get that information out, and I can tell you that there is a person or a suspect, and so not to get too much into it, and we could talk about that at a later time, because I really want to focus on this and make sure that people understand we're very serious about our officers and their safety, and I really want to just say I am very grateful and thankful that those officers were not injured and they were not hurt, and they do get to go home to their families tonight just like we do, and so thank you.